Hello, folks. We are going to create a complementary neutral checkerboard or chart to understand what happens when we mix our complementary pairs together, like yellow and violet, or orange and blue, or red and green, or even the tertiaries like yellow, orange, and blue, violet. What this does is it creates a range of earth tones and also helps to neutralize or desaturate the brightness of our primary hues. So that will help to create shadows for yellows, or just create those beautiful earth colors that you might find in nature. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a grid here with our pencil. I'm doing it very lightly with my HB pencil. The grid is going to be 12 inches by 10 inches. So 10 inches tall, 12 inches wide. And make it centered on your page. So you just got to do a little bit of subtraction to do that. We know that the height is 14 inches. So 14 minus 10 is 4. Divide that by 2. Then we know we've got 2 inches on top and bottom. We can measure twice, right? Both on the left and right side at 2 inches, make that line. Do the same thing here. Measure twice, 2 inches, make that line. We've got our height. We do the same thing with the width. The width here is 12 on the chart. The paper is 17. 17 minus 12, right, is 5. Divide that by 2. We get 2.5 on both sides. We can, once again, measure twice. 2.5 to here, 2.5 to here. We connect that line. We repeat the process over here. We have a nice centered rectangle. Then we can go ahead and put our 2-inch square grid inside of this. So we just do that by using our ruler to measure in 2-inch increments across the bottom, across the top. We connect those lines, right? Measure twice, draw once, or cut once, right? Then we do the same thing on the left and right. 2-inch increments from the top down on both left and right side. We connect those lines. Now we have a beautifully perfect centered grid. And what we are going to do is we are going to start in the left column with yellow and violet, and then we're progressively going to work our way over. Always work vertically. It'll make everything go easier and smoother, and if you are right-handed, it will help you not smear things. If you happen to be left-handed, you're welcome to start with the red, violet, and yellow, green. But I feel like it's a little harder to start with the red, violet until you know what your red is. So just keep that in mind. So we have our pastels here. I'm going to go ahead and use this yellow for the pastel. And then I'm going to use my violet pastel as well. So unlike the contrast of hue checkerboards, you can just go ahead and use the pure colors here from your pastel set. You don't have to mix every color, although there are some colors here you'll have to mix. But for the basic primaries, we're going to go ahead and line those up right there. So I'll start with yellow, and I'll just go ahead and fill this whole swatch or square with yellow. Just nice and pure. If you'd like, you can move it around with your finger and smooth it out. I will go ahead and I'll put violet, pure violet, down here at the bottom, just so I know what it looks like. What I like about these tools, really easy to do straight lines when you have your square edges, right? Because I can just kind of line things up and fill things in. So we'll fill that in really good. I'm going to go ahead and smooth it out a little bit with my finger so it's nice and blended and solid. right? Avoid blowing the dust off if you're inside, so that way you just blow it all off at the same time, or do it outside, or knock it off next to you onto like a paper towel maybe, or an extra plate, or something like that, so that way you're not blowing that dust all over the place and making a big old mess everywhere. And we can knock that off if you don't like the excess on your page. But I recommend doing it, save it, because now I can actually smell the dust a little bit. It's kind of gone into the air when I did that. So I really recommend just holding off, taking it outside, blowing it off in there, so that way you're not breathing this stuff in. Okay, so the next step is going to be then to start blending these two complementary colors together. So there really is, it's really an optical mixture. Optical meaning that we're mixing it with our eyes, right? And I've kind of gotten it written here, 100%, which means 100% yellow, right? Then at the bottom, it's 100% again, which is 100% violet. Then it's 75-25%, so that means 75% yellow, 25% violet. But that really doesn't mean it's necessarily 25% like violet material. It's really an optical mixture. So it means, optically speaking, it's 25% of the way to purple, right? And then the middle, 50-50, is right in between what yellow and violet would make. So I'm going to go ahead, let's go ahead and start this by, I'm just going to layer in a good amount of yellow here. Okay. Then I can go ahead and I'm just going to start lightly here, because I can always add more. If I go too dark too fast, then it's hard to get it lighter again. But if I start nice and light, I can always add more purple. Then I'm going to go ahead and just spread it around to blend it. And that doesn't look too different. Little bit mustardy, but not quite much. So I'm going to add a little bit more purple into here. And you're going to notice that it starts to kind of brown the yellow a little bit, which is exactly what we want, right? Now I'm getting that beautiful mustardy yellow color here. And we don't want to go too fast with our mixture, because we want to make sure we take even steps up to back to the purple. So that's pretty good for now. If it's not right, I can come back in and fix it later. But I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to put a little bit less yellow down at first. And now I'm going to add a little bit more purple. Now, if I don't blend it, it kind of really optically mixes, right? The little bits of texture that the yellow show through adds what we would call an optical mixture here. The moment I decide to blend it with my finger, then that starts to create what we call an atomic mixture, because we're actually mixing the different chalks together. But, yeah. So that's the difference there. Atomic mixing is really what happens when you mix paint together, right? You mix yellow and red together, and it literally creates orange, right? With this drawing technique, we're doing a little bit of optical mixing here, but if you look closely, you'll still see little bits of yellow peeking through, right? So there's still a little optical mixture happening there, even after I've blended it. But until I blend it, we get just pure optical mixing. So now I'm going to do this last one here that's closest to violet. And I am just going to put a little bit of yellow in here, not much, just a nice little light dusting of yellow. And then I'll go ahead and bring in more of my purple now over top of that. Purple or violet, right? It's the same color. Now I can blend that around with my finger. And you can see that I feel like there's a big difference here, right? Not so much difference here. So what I think I need to do, I need to add a little bit more violet to this to have this feel like it's a little closer to violet. There we go. That's a little nicer there. Then what I can do, I can add just a hair bit more violet to the middle one to just get it feel like it's a really nice progression. And then now that's looking a little bit more like a smooth blend over to violet. Notice we've got these beautiful, mustard colors and like deep olives or deep plums now here, right? These would make great shadows on things, if you had a shadow of a banana, you're drawing a banana, this would be a great shadow for that. Or if you are trying to draw like fall colors in a tree, right? A combination of these colors would give us a lot of depth and value because not only are they getting neutralized, right? But this yellow is getting darker in value as it gets closer to the violet. So not only are we neutralizing the yellow, we're making it a little darker as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here and take this and blow it off outside, and then we'll start back up with the next column. Okay, here we are back. I just blew it off outside a little bit just to get some of the excess dust off. Now we're going to start with yellow-orange and go to blue-violet. So even our tertiary colors do have complements, right? So I'm going to need to mix a yellow-orange now because we actually don't have a yellow-orange in our kit, right? We've got this kind of slightly warmer orange, so I'm going to start with that. But we don't really have a yellow-orange. So I'm going to start with that, and then I will go ahead and then get my orange out here as well to mix this yellow-orange. So I've got a bunch of if your tip is dirty with old color, just mark it off, clean it up a little bit before you do that, so that way you don't do what I just did and get that bit of green on there, but that's okay. This color is a little bit more yellow-orange. It's a little bit golden, but I feel like we can get, if we think about, I'm going to go ahead and just put some orange here, right? Like if we think about here is orange, this is the color of, the hue of orange here. What is in the middle between yellow and orange, right? And currently, this other yellow I have here is not quite in the middle, right? It's really close to yellow on the color wheel. So if I just come in here and then add a little bit of orange to this swatch, and then I can blend it around, and now I feel like, wow, okay, now that is much more in the middle between yellow and orange, right? It's closer to orange than a little bit closer to orange now on the color wheel, right? So I'll go ahead and just smooth out this orange while we're at it here, since it's on here. Okay, great. So now it's a little bit, these tertiaries are a little tricky because now when I go to my next, well, let's go ahead and mix blue-violet, I guess, while we're at it too. Since we don't really have a blue-violet in our kit, we're going to have to mix a blue-violet. So I'll do the same thing. I'll start by just layering some violet in here. Right, and I can do the same thing if that's blue. And we've got a couple different blues that we can use. I'm going to go ahead and use this slightly darker blue, I think, for this exercise, although this pure like cyan color is very nice. But we'll go ahead and use this blue here, more classic blue. Right, if we get this blue here then you can see the difference between violet and blue. Now, what color is optically in the middle there, right? That's the color we want. So now I come in here, back over my violet to create my blue-violet color. And then I can wipe off my finger so I don't get any orange on there. And then I'll go ahead and spread this around. And now you can see my purple feels a little bit more blue. Like my violet is just a little bit more blue than the violet. And then the blue violet's a little bit more violet than the blue. Right? That's kind of what we're going for here in these tertiary colors. So I think that's pretty good. I think I can probably add a little bit more blue into this and spread it around. And then that's a little bit more blue-violet there. You can kind of see a clear progression, violet, blue, violet to blue. A little harder maybe to see on the screen because I'm losing a little bit of color here, but I assure you it looks good. I'll try to get a good picture posted that looks a little bit more accurate. Okay, so now we've got our yellow, orange, and our blue, violet. Now what the tricky part is that, right, I need to, I've got to mix blue, violet, or yellow, orange here again, right? So first I got to start by mixing my yellow, orange. Yeah, it's easier if we just do this with the primaries and secondaries, but I think it's fun to see these subtle differences here. If we had a larger set of colors, like a larger set of pastels, we might have a yellow, orange already in there that we could just use. But if we don't, then we've got to do it this way. So I got my yellow, orange now. Now I've got to come in with just a tiny bit of blue. Just a tiny bit of blue. I'm just going to put a few strokes of blue across that. I'm going to put a few strokes of my violet across that. And then we'll blend them together here. Okay, hey, that looks pretty good. So now I can do the same thing here in the next swatch. And this is the reason why it's nice to work vertically, is because if I'm working vertically like this, one, I don't smear everything as I go across. And then two, I only have to have like the colors I need out and handy, and I'm not moving around, I'm not making a ton of choices as I'm doing this. It's really important when we're painting, because painting just takes more time to mix colors and stuff. This is a little faster, but some of you are going to want to go, you're like, oh, I'll just do yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, across red, violet. Even though I say this like a billion times, some of you will go all the way across, and then you do all the way in the bottom, and then you'll switch and do them intermittently. And I promise you, it's just going to take longer. Don't do it that way. Do it this way. It's a little it's faster. It's more, there's less changing around. There's less confusion. Trust me. Do work from column to column. So now to get this 50-50 mixture, I've just got to add a little bit more blue and a little bit more violet to my yellow orange. Mix them together. And I kind of get this like beautiful sagey green color here right now, which I'm really enjoying here. You know, or maybe it's the bark of some desert shrub here, right? Or almost like the colors of like dirt that, you know, grass and dirt that hasn't been watered, right? And you can do a lot with this color. I could, you know, if I really wanted to draw some nature on top of this in a landscape, I could come over with yellows on stuff on top of this and really get a nice, you know, sense of layering and texture there with this color as a base. So, yeah, really important to think about how colors mix and how to build up layers with colors. So that's what this exercise is. One of the things this exercise is doing. So I'll mix my yellow-orange one last time. Blend it on there. And then I'll go ahead and just put even more blue, even more purple, and then blend all of that together. And boom, look at that. That's actually really nice. I managed to get that first go. Right, nice progression, yellow, orange, all the way to blue, violet. With now I have this like almost deep green, brownish green color, you know. And notice how it's like one step over to the right, from left to right as well. Same here, right? So not only are we creating a color chart vertically, but if we do this right, we should have a clear progression of neutral colors across that becomes really dynamic. So that's pretty much the gist of this whole thing, right? Now you can proceed. Orange and blue is going to be pretty easy because we're just going to use the two colors, right? When we go to red-orange, we're just going to need to mix a red-orange by taking red and adding a little bit of orange to it, or yellow, right? If I added yellow to red, a little bit of yellow to red, it would do the same thing. Right? And then red to green, and then we'll do the same kind of mixture for red and violet that we just kind of did with yellow-orange, right? We'll mix the red-violet. We actually kind of have a red-violet color here in our kit, so that might be one you can just use. Now, we don't really have any good greens in here. We've got this one dark green, so you're welcome to use that for your green, but it's really dark already. I kind of feel like, you know, the best green is probably going to be, you know, mixing a green with yellow and blue would probably produce the best green here, the most, luminous green, than that deep dark one that's in there. But you can use whichever one you want. If you want to experiment with the green mixture, great. If you want to just use that green that's included, that's great too. That actually still looks like a little yellow green in there. I actually like the green that this blue creates with the cool yellow. It just cools the green down just a tad bit, which is what I like. But I'm jumping ahead here. I'm going to go ahead and just finish this thing through. And just kind of, you can check out of the video now if you feel comfortable. But I'll just go ahead and keep recording while I'm doing these progressions and talk my way through it, just in case you want to experience the whole, hang out with me for the whole creation of this chart here. So I'm going to do my orange and blue column now. So I'm getting a lot of orange down there. I'm going to come over with just a little bit of blue here, not too much. And then go ahead and start to move that around a little bit. I'm going to come in with just a little bit more orange over top of this. Might have went a little dark too fast on that. I think I might have added just a little bit too much blue to get going here, but maybe I can get a little bit more orange back in this before I move on. But sometimes you'll make those mistakes, but that's okay. We're learning, right? So now I'll go ahead and make the middle one, lay down my orange, push down my blue here. We'll go ahead and blend these to get this green off my finger. Yeah, see, I feel like I would like this one down here, but that's sometimes that just happens here. Maybe I can come in with my eraser and pull a little bit of this up. Re-put in some more. My orange doesn't really want to. I feel like I put too much on here already, and my orange doesn't really want to take very well, but yeah, that's a little bit better now, right? I think so. So then I'll come back in here and add a little bit more orange on top of this blue and blend that in. Now, yeah, that feels like a little bit better progression here. So I'm happy with that revision. Then I'm going to go ahead here and just put a little bit of orange down. And then we're going to go ahead with my blue here. And then we'll blend those together. And now I really like this color. I still see a little blue in here. It's like a really deep sea colored blue, like from the ocean, the sea, right? Essentially just neutralize the brightness of this blue a little bit to get to that color, right? And now I've got a nice, clear progression. I'm going to go ahead and pause it again and go ahead and blow off my paper outside a little bit, and I'll come back and keep finishing this up. Okay, here I am back again. So now I'm going to make a red-orange here. So what I'll do is go ahead and lay down some red here. It's kind of pinkish. Maybe I want to do this red. That's a little, yeah, I guess we will use this cooler red here. So I think that'll work better in the long run. Now I just got to come in and add some orange. I could add a little bit of yellow and it would do the same thing, right? Because yellow and orange are both down the same other, close to each other in color theory or on the color wheel. So by adding yellow to my red, I'm doing effectively the same thing as adding orange, as long as I just add a little less yellow, because yellow will change it faster, right, than the orange. But there's usually more than one way to mix colors and arrive at the same combinations or subtly different combinations, which is why color is so fascinating to me. So now we're at a little bit more yellow-orange here. A little bit more red. It looks a little bit, not as saturated as it is in real life for me. So hopefully it'll be the same way for you in your experience. Look a little bit brighter in person. Okay, so now I've made a red-orange. Now to get blue-green, I am just going to take, I'm going to go ahead and take my yellow here, and I'm going to use this light blue here to make my green, just because I think it makes such a nice green. And wow, yeah, look at that. Slightly different. It's more seafoamy to me. Maybe I'll add a little bit of this other blue in here just to darken it up a tad, even though, man, that was a nice, almost turquoise green. Yeah, that looks like a good blue-green to me. Here, it's, again, a color. It's a little bit bluer than green, and it's a little more green than the blue, right? That's kind of how I know if I'm doing it. Got it where I want it. Okay. So let's see. I'm rearranging some stuff here. Now let's go ahead and finish this red-orange out. So that means I've got to start by getting this red-orange down. So here I am. I'm just using orange now, but I'll use a little bit more orange. Ooh, I kind of like that a little bit better. That's a nice color. I kind of wish I would have done that in the beginning, man. Ooh, that's a nice red-orange when I use orange directly. So I'm going to go ahead and change that a little bit up here too. Yeah, it's a little bit warmer. Now I've got to get a little bit of blue-green in there. So that means, well, pretty much just add a little bit of blue. This light blue here. I did have a little bit of this blue in there. Some of the tiniest bit of that in there. And then I guess I'll come over with some yellow, even though it kind of almost doesn't make sense. And then we'll push that together. Yeah, that neutralized it a little bit. Again, clear development from left to right as well as from top down. Now we'll go ahead and do it again here for the next swatch. Man, the color just brings me so much joy. It's so fascinating to see all the different subtle color mixtures, and even if you make mistakes here, you're going to learn things, right? You're going to learn about different color mixtures, regardless if you get this super accurate or not. So don't worry if it's not perfect. Just try and notice more and more about the relationships between these complementary colors here, and how they become neutrals and how they mix and how they give you different effects, and then where you think you could potentially use those strategies. See, now that's a little bit similar. It looks a little similar to me than the other one, so I'm going to add a little bit more blue here. We'll add... see, this is my life. When I'm making my own artwork, I always end up with like so many different colors in my hand because I have a pretty intuitive sense of color now. I know exactly what needs to happen to get the effects that I want. And then so I end up with like, 4 color pencils in my hand or something because I'm just doing all these like subtle little revisions. And hopefully that's where you'll get someday as well. So since I'm doing mostly blue-green here, I think I'll start by starting with the blue-green now, so I get the blue-green here a little bit better applied. First, I'm going to use this nice light cyan blue to get that like turquoise tone, and then I'll slide just a tiny bit of this darker blue in there just to darken it up a little bit. And let's see if that gets it pretty close to the original that I mixed. Yeah, pretty close. I feel like it could be a little bit bluer. So I'm going to put a little bit more blue in there to get that a little bit more blue-green. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now I can come over with my red-orange tone. So that means I'll just take a little bit of red. I'll take a little bit of orange. And then we will blend all that together and see where we get. Hey, that's not bad. It's a little lighter than this one because we used a darker blue than this one. So if I want to make that a little bit closer to this, then I might just need to add a little bit more of this deeper blue to get to my left to right progression a little smoother. But man, this is looking beautiful so far. I'm really digging this. I've done this with paint many times and with color pencils a lot. I've not done it too often with pastels. So this is really exciting. I'm learning a ton here. So now I can go ahead. Red is so nice when we just get to go back to the primaries or the easy secondaries. Because look, now it's just red. It's just one color. So much easier. Okay, great. I'm going to wipe off my... I like that my hands are so dirty. Wipe off my green hand. So now I can blend my red without muddying my green. I'll get a little bit more on there. Now I can start... I'll layer in a little bit of red here. Get a good bunch of red going on here. And now, since I mixed all my greens, so that means I do have to go back and mix the green first. So that means I've got to add a little bit of yellow, which pretty much makes that orange. Then I'll add a little bit of blue. And since I've made my green with 3 blues, that means I've got to add a little bit of this other blue too, if I want it to be accurate. Very close to that. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more red to redden it up. And then I'll add a little bit more of this dark blue, which I think will help bring that a little bit darker from my left to right while still getting that good transition from there too. So you're kind of walking along here with me, if you're still with me here, thinking through how I approach color theory and thinking about how these colors exist on the spectrum of color and on the color wheel, and then and also when we have warm and cool variations of these colors, right? So if I have a really cool blue or a warm blue or a warm red and a cooler red or a warm yellow and a cooler yellow, right? All of these things exist on that spectrum, and they can really help guide us to create really good color usage. So essentially adding a little bit of yellow so I can mix a green here. We'll get this blue down. We'll get this blue down. I might have overdone it here, but hey, that's okay. We're learning. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm going to make it a little bit more red, because I think that yellow and the green really made it a little closer to the red-orange, right? So I added a little bit of red back in there. Now it definitely feels a little redder than the one to the left of it, which is good and is what we want. So now I'll start by, I'm just going to start by mixing my green here at this one first. That way I get the green out of the way. Ooh, I love that turquoise. That's a beautiful green there. Add a little bit of this blue just to darken it up. I think I went too far, so I'm going to add yellow back into this. Get a little bit more yellow there. Now I can smooth that out. That's pretty close to my green. Not quite, but I think it'll work. And then I'll go ahead and add red onto that. I think I need to add more red. Hey, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. I like that color. That's a really nice color. And I love this red here too. This red here in the middle. Such a beautiful, like, deep burgundy color, especially in person here. So, yeah, I'm happy with the way the reds and the green turned out. I wish I had a pure green to work with. Now I'm really curious what would happen if I did use this, to figure that out. But, oh well. Hey, red violet. Let's do the last one here. So, red violet. I've got this nice kind of red violet. That's a little bit pinkish or magenta. It would work, but I think I want to add a little bit of red into that just to make it a little bit more red violet. What do you think another strategy would be to make red violet? Right? We would mix red and blue. So maybe I'll add a little bit of this blue in there just to really push that to a stronger red violet here. Yeah, that looks all right. I got some green in there that's working against me. Whoops. Well, see, now I went a little bit too violet-y, right? So I took it too far, so now it just means I got to come back and get some red back in there and make it a little bit more red. And that looks all right. It looks better in person. Not super happy with that color I mixed there, so I'm going to come back in with this magenta a little bit, and I think that's going to help smooth it out a little bit. It looks really dark on the screen to me, but that's okay. Sometimes not everything works out the way you want it to. Now, if I want to mix, now we'll mix this yellow-green down here, so I'll start with yellow. I really ought to take my page outside and blow it off too. That's going to help. And then to mix yellow-green, I'm just going to take a tiny bit of this blue here and layer it into that yellow. And then we'll smooth it around here. So now we want it to be a little bit more, but you know, yellower than green, but greener than the yellow here. So if you're following the color wheel, right, we've just progressed from violet over to yellow-green, and now we're jumping back up, right? But I think that needs to get a little bit more blue in there for it to really be a true yellow-green. Maybe I did a little too much blue there, so come back in with a little bit of yellow on top of that. And that's looking pretty nice. So now I can come back up to here and I'll get my red-violet going. I'm going to go ahead and just keep it simple and use that color with a little bit of the red in it. And we're going to leave it like that. Now I can come back in with some yellow and some blue to mix that yellow-green color. I think I did too much blue there, but that's okay. And now I've got, oh, that's a really nice color too. I don't even know what color that is, but I bet there's something in nature that we can match with that. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do the rest of this real quick. So we've got to get a little bit more yellow-green in this one. So I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in there. A little bit more blue, darken it up. And then I think I'm going to come back in here with a little bit more of my red-violet to really, ooh man, the way those colors are layering in person looks really, really, really nice. Hey, that's a little bit better. It still seems pretty similar to that. Maybe what would happen if I came in and add a little bit more of this darker blue in here? I might be able to make that a little bit darker. Yeah, this red-violet one is really giving me some trouble here. But that's okay. Sometimes they do that, especially when we're doing optical mixtures like this. Really nice when we're using paint, because paint's makes a little bit more sense. When everything mixes together, you have just one color, you know. When we're using drawing tools to do this, you know, we're having to, you know, I've got to mix 4 colors to get this to work, but I think this is looking pretty good now. So I'm going to pause this, and then I'm going to come right back. Okay, so now's the fun part where we get to go on a scavenger hunt. So I went out into my garden in my backyard, and I found some natural objects from different plants, and now I can kind of match them up with the colors that I've created here. I can see many different colors in this bougainvillea flower, right? A little bit more accurate in real life, but some of the shadows in the bougainvillea really work well with this red and green mixture. And then some of them mix very nicely with the red-violet that I created. Some of the colors on the stem really work very well with these neutral colors that right here with the red, violet, and yellow, green. I've got some like plants that are leaves that are kind of dying off, and they mix really great in here. Some of the different greens match throughout. Yeah, same with this shriveled up piece of spinach that I have. I've got another random leaf that is really, really dried out and dark, and that mixes well here also. I've got this deep green from this one plant here that goes really well with this blue, violet, yellow, orange mixture. And then some of the purple on there mixes quite well there also. I've got a leaf from a tree that mixes really well matches really well down here. It's a little darker, so I would need to darken it with maybe some black to get it to work, but it fits pretty good here too. Some deeper colors that really I can kind of find my way around in here. I've got this piece of aloe plant that matches quite well here. It's quite phenomenal to think about how this works. This is a piece of red lettuce that matches perfectly here. And I think what this really identifies is that when we think about the optics of our eye, the way our eye is constructed to see, the same cones and rods that allows you to see yellow allows you to see violet. So in nature, what we are actually witnessing is mixtures of these complementary colors, which is what's creating most of what we see in nature. Is, our eyes engaging with the electromagnetic spectrum, the spectrum of a light that creates rainbows, and our eyes are actually witnessing this, and that's what's making these us perceive these different colors. So why don't you go outside, take a little field trip outside, and see if you can find different colors that match up on yours, and then include that photograph also in your exercise submission. All right. Hey, thanks for sticking around this long through the video. This is a long one, huh? So we'll talk soon and catch up later. All right, everybody. Take care.